You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 3rd of November. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And you might know me from the Quickie. I'm Claire Murphy, filling in for... Who am I filling in for today? Which Stevens?
It's unclear. You are filling a Stevens seat.
A Stevens hole.
Because Claire Stevens finished filling in for Jessie Stevens on Wednesday, but Jessie Stevens isn't coming back till Monday. They're very complicated, those twins.
They are.
And we are delighted that in the interim, we've got a Murphy.
Thank you.
So
You always
delighted.
make me feel so
And the Out Louders will be delighted too. They love a bit of Murphy. On the show today, should the world just shut up about weight loss injections? And Mia just met a man who women pay to have sex with, and I have 25 questions about it. And we wrap up our best and worst of the week, which include one particular Matilda's love life, brilliant midlife women, and a brand new body part. But first, Claire Murphy.
In case you missed it, this makes us old. I would like you both to please lift up your feet from underneath this table and show me your footwear, please. Mia Freedman has her Adidas on and invisible socks. Oh, Holly Wainwright's got the clogs on.
Sorry,
Okay, you
no
can't.
socks.
You're not helpful in this discussion.
You've got invisible socks too.
I have invisible socks on too, but apparently this makes us old.
Why?
So there is a TikToker by the name of Phoebe Parsons. She also hosts a podcast. And she has uploaded a video explaining that she can take one look at a person and figure out if they are millennial or Gen Z by how they wear their socks.
Are their socks up or are they wearing hidden ankle socks? Because Gen Zs exclusively wear their socks up and millennials still wear ankle socks.
We are considered millennial even though neither of us are.
Well, that makes me feel young immediately.
So you've slipped down a generation,
I'm not complaining.
but the Gen Zers don't think you're
Yeah,
cool.
Gen Zers have gone back to the olden days of, say, when we were in high school when we used to pull our socks up. So they are Gen X children in a Gen Z body now because they pull their socks up like we used to when we were kids.
So it's like skipped a
Yeah.
generation.
Whereas
Yes.
we all think that when we wear trainers, we should look like we're not wearing any socks.
Yeah.
But Gen Z think you should be wearing your socks proudly.
There's also like designer socks now, like kids have the Santa Cruz
I
socks.
did
with
buy
the
some
things,
gold
you know.
socks the other day and I'm planning to wear them with either trainers or with heels.
There you go.
Yeah.
But can I also just say, I don't have a pull-up sock leg. Like the shape of my leg does not really suit a pulled-up sock. I've got quite, substantial calves. So when the sock goes up, it just kind of
Falls down.
accentuates the giant calfness.
Well, it cuts you, all that stuff that you learn from reading articles and fashion experts say you shouldn't cut your leg off,
Well,
even with an ankle strap. But if it's going to make me look cooler, then I'm all for it.
one of my favorite things is millennials being told that they're old by Gen
By
Z.
Gen Z,
I love it.
Because they've been telling us we're old for ages if you happen to be older. And so I predict the sock rage will be real.
Australian of the Year and body image activist Taryn Brumfitt addressed the National Press Club on Tuesday to discuss the mental health crisis, eating disorders and poor body image. She broke down some harmful myths and deeply ingrained beliefs that society has held about bodies. But when one of the journalists that was there asked about the impact of weight loss injections on the body positivity movement, she said she didn't want to talk about it. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
First, I'm not going to talk about the weight loss drug. There's enough of it out there, and it's doing us such a great disservice to talk about it. So what I want everyone to know is that people who appreciate and feel good about their bodies are more likely to move their bodies. They're more likely to eat fruit and vegetables. They're more likely to get cervical screening. They're more likely to put on sunscreen. They're less likely to drink, smoke, take illicit drugs, vape and do all the things. The list of reasons why we would want to get everyone in this country to embrace their bodies and feel good about their bodies is really long. The list of making people feel shame or talking about the obesity epidemic, it has got us nowhere. It makes people feel bad in their bodies. When people feel bad in their bodies, they don't make great choices about their bodies. So we've got enough history to say, can we stop making people feel shame about their bodies? Can we make people feel good in their bodies because they're going to make better choices?
I thought that was really interesting and it's not new, that information. But I guess my question is, and what I wanted to discuss today is, If weight loss injections can make a difference and help people who want to lose weight, and no doubt we're not doctors, we should say that at the start, we're not advising anyone does anything. There are obviously side effects, you need to talk to your doctor. But there's a lot of talk about this. Does just shutting down the conversation about weight loss injections and the potential benefits of them, as well as the harms, and just not talking about them at all, is that helpful, Claire Murphy?
At this point in time, no, I don't think so. I think it's nice to say we shouldn't need them, that we shouldn't talk about them or promote them, that we all should just embrace our bodies and embrace a wonderful, healthy lifestyle and learn to move and nourish ourselves in a way that means that we are wonderful and beautifully healthy. But that is not the society we currently exist in. You know, we're told that you can be any size and still be healthy, which is absolutely true. You can also be thin and unhealthy. Like, all of these things are very true. But if you go to a doctor, if you go to a GP, I can guarantee you if you are overweight, you will be told that losing weight will fix your problem. And so you're presented with this option that we can see is actually working. And so you take it and then you're told, stop talking about it, stop telling people that you're using it. Not only are you taking it away from people who have a condition who need it, but it seems that you're losing weight in a way that is not acceptable to the wider population. So now I've been told, you have a problem, go and fix it. Here's a solution, but that's not the way that you should be going about it.
And you're talking from personal experience?
I am, yes. And I'm having this conversation with many of my friends who have also been using these various types of injections, and they're coming to me and saying, I don't want to tell anyone. I feel really ashamed. I feel like I shouldn't be taking it. I feel like I am doing the wrong thing. So by telling people stop talking about it, it makes people who already feel shame for finding a solution to a problem they've been told will fix so many of their things is wrong.
It needs to be stressed that what we're talking about here, the new raft of weight loss injections that were formulated as treatment for type 2 diabetes, but has been proven to be really effective for weight loss. You've seen the headlines about them absolutely everywhere, and everybody's talking about which celebrities are on it and which aren't. And it needs to be stressed that they can and do come with side effects for some people more than others, like all medications. Some people will suffer, some people won't. Some people find it incredibly effective, some people won't. But the reason why everybody's talking about this is in the long line of products that have been sold to us, from lollipops to teas that might, help people lose weight if they want to. These are actually quite effective treatments. And so they are widely promoted and talked about, and everybody's talking about who's on it, who's not, all the rest of it.
When you say promoted, they can't be advertised. I mean, you
Not
can
in
hear
Australia.
No, in Australia, we can't even mention what the names are, although I'm sure you know what they are. But I just want to talk about body image more generally, because I worked in the body positivity movement in the 90s with magazines, and here's what I think I got wrong. It's not enough to just tell people that don't conform to society's very narrow guidelines for what an acceptable body should look like to feel better about it. We want to broaden those guidelines quite literally in every way, not just with size, but with skin colour, with age, with so many things, so that the ideal woman, and let's just stick to women, is not just skinny, white, tall, thin, blonde, young. And I really see these two things as contradictory in some ways, because I feel that what we're saying to women, society is saying to women, lose weight to conform, right? But then the body positivity movement, and we're trying to say to ourselves and each other, no, don't lose weight. You're gorgeous at every size. Feel good. Don't try to do these things. Don't go on a diet. Don't do all of these things. Now, not only am I feeling pressure from society that I don't conform, but I'm feeling guilty that I don't embrace my body at every size.
But also too, you have healthcare professionals telling you that if you have any issue, being thin will fix it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I know that you often say, Mia, that healthy's just become a code for thin. But for people who have had issues with
in some contexts.
Yes, for people who've had issues with their weight, like, you are constantly told by the health industry too, that if you are not the ideal size, or if your BMI is at a certain number, and we all know that that's been widely debunked now, the efficacy of the BMI, but you're constantly told by literal experts that you are a burden on society unless you conform as well. The only thing is, to pick up on what you said though, Mia, is I do feel like genuine progress was being made with the body positivity movement. There is no doubt that when I look at the generation younger than I am, I don't believe for a minute that the pressure to be thin has gone away. And certainly Instagram is awash with skinny white influencers. But what is also there that was not there, visible when I was young, is lots of women of different sizes. In the windows of the underwear store, in the pages of the catalogue for a clothing brand. And so progress is happening.
Yes.
And if we're getting to the nub of this, which is people are saying if weight loss injections prove to be so broadly effective that we get to a world where we say, well, everybody who is not deemed to be at a healthy size should take them, are we setting back the body positivity movement? That is a question that a lot of people are throwing around.
And I think maybe yes, to a degree, because we don't want to look at ourselves and hate what we see. We want to embrace what we see in the mirror. But if that person in the mirror is not well, is not healthy, and I include mental health in this as well, because it does impact your mental health if you are not moving your body and if you are not, eating well. But if you've struggled with this for your entire life or for many years and you've done everything and you've tried all the things and then you're presented with this thing that they say will actually help you, what I don't understand is why people are so mad at people who are doing this. I just don't get it, because I personally have struggled a long time with this, and I have had to have surgery recently, a really major surgery. So I was like, I've got to get on top of this. Otherwise, my recovery is going to be hell. So I found all the ways in which to, try and make it happen, but nothing was working. And so I went to my GP and was prescribed something that did. And it's like, why are you mad at me for doing that?
Do you think, Claire, do you feel like people are mad at you for doing that?
I had dinner with a friend last night who said to me, how did you do it? And I told her, and she was like, well, I'm on it too, but you're the first person I've told because I feel really bad about saying it out loud.
My gosh. Oh, I know people who are on it who don't want anybody to know.
But also too, you're also not supposed to talk about losing weight anymore. You're not allowed to discuss it. You're not allowed to have people come up to you and say, you look great, you've lost weight, you are half the size you were. You're not supposed to take that as a compliment.
But so we've had this argument before, Mia and I. If you don't want to talk about it, I have a very strong conviction that you are under no obligation to tell anyone. So if somebody comes up to you and says, you look like you've lost a lot of weight, which let's face it, people do, even though you're not supposed to, people do. If you don't want to say, I'm doing this and this, I will fight to the death for you not to have to.
Yeah, but there's a difference between not wanting to talk about it and feeling like you can't talk about it.
Yes, because that's back to the shame.
Yes, it's more the gatekeepers of thin. Right? These are the people who tell you, we will accept you at this mean girls table that we've been telling you can't sit at because you're too fat, as long as you do it in a way that we find acceptable.
Which ideally comes with a lot of restriction and self-punishment.
Suffering.
If you are not suffering for your thin privilege, then you haven't earned your seat at the table.
This is not my personal view, but I know people who say, that's all good, but are we giving a message to people that, considering there are side effects for a lot of people, not everybody, but people have reported feeling nauseous, stomach issues that don't go away. And I'm not saying this is what happens, but this is the perception. We'll give up the pleasure that food can give us, which is real and genuine nourishment and joy. We will give up, feeling well inside ourselves if we can only be what everybody wants us to be. That isn't something that we should be putting out there as the option for everybody. You know what I mean? Because there is a pressure then that comes with people saying, well, why isn't everybody who is not a perfect size X on this drug?
But what I can tell you is until that day where we don't look at people who are not thin and say that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. And I've had this discussion with people in this office today who have had moments where they've been told that I would rather have anything happen to me than look like you because you're fat.
Yeah,
right?
100% people
Until
think that.
we get out of that mindset, and that is a seismic shift in
But
the
how
way that
can
people
we?
think.
But don't you
I
think-
don't know, but that's what Taryn Brumfitt is asking us to do, is like shift an entire society's way of thinking. That's not going to happen today.
No, I don't think she is. I entirely understand what you're saying, Claire Murphy, but I think you've got to address symptoms and causes, right? And I don't mean medically. I mean in the culture.
Yeah.
Because saying we need to change the culture is really valid, which is what
Of
she's
course.
saying and what you're saying. And I really believe the culture is changing, because I do see young women much more proud of body diversity than they ever used to be, as we said at the beginning of this. So I don't think that we should go, well, that's just never going to happen, so forget it. I think we should continue the pressure to absolutely represent lots of different sizes and celebrate them.
Why can't
rather
we
than
include?
flatten?
Why can't we do both?
Why can't
Well,
we do all those things?
No,
Yeah.
we can do both. But what I'm saying is, I think that saying this isn't how the world is yet doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying to make it that way, is my point.
I agree, but
Yeah.
it's also not a moment to say stop talking, because that doesn't have a place in the narrative yet. Telling people who take weight loss injections or anyone in this industry to stop talking is another layer of shame, which just makes it worse.
This week, Mia met a man so sexy, women pay him to have sex with them. Mia, I have so many questions about this guy.
Bring it on.
I'm being facetious, obviously, kinda. Because this week you dropped your No Filter episode with a man called Mitch Larsson, except he's not really called Mitch Larsson, he's called Dan. But he was talking to Mia about his career as what we euphemistically call a male escort, which is basically he's a straight male sex worker. And Mitch told Mia that in the years that he has been a male escort, the women he worked with were very often at a crossroads in their life when they called him. So he said maybe they just had a terrible breakup and they were devastated and need to kind of rebuild their confidence. Maybe there'd been a diagnosis for them. There was a cancer diagnosis in one of his clients, Alzheimer's in another. Maybe they were in a sexless marriage and suddenly realized they didn't want to live the rest of their life like that. And who are you going to call? You're going to call Mitch. My voice is dripping with excitement and sarcasm.
God, you're using the word
Mitch.
dripping. This is too much.
Ew.
Sorry. But one of the things that might surprise you about this conversation that plays against stereotypes is what Mitch said he needed in all his clients. Here's a bit of what he said.
You talk with all your clients about needing some kind of emotional connection
Definitely.
to be able to go through with it,
Yeah.
to be able to be turned on and to be able to even not be turned on, but to be able to get an erection and actually, you know, do your job.
Yeah, it was something that I needed to have. I needed to have that bond before lovemaking could take place. And lovemaking, not sex, like actual passionate lovemaking. And once leaving a booking, having achieved that was just a wonderful feeling. You know, not the physical side of it, you know, that was nice too, but just having made a difference and picked up somebody's mood and made them feel really good. It was really nice. It was wonderful.
You know how everyone's got words they can't
I'm
handle?
such a juvenile. I just had to hold in
like
laughter.
love making or making love or any permutation of that phrase makes me want to vomit. It
gives
just
you the
feels so
ick.
70s. It's
Yeah.
so the ick. If
Yeah.
anyone said, let's make love, I would lose it.
To be fair, I started laughing when he said erection. I
I
think
would-
I'm a bit of a child.
I would instantly be the Sahara.
Mia, what I wanted to discuss is, like, I listened to that interview. It was so interesting. But what was really interesting to me about this emotional connection business is that I had kind of imagined, right, that if I was ever going to call a male escort, which I haven't done, but I literally have no judgment. I'm so glad this is a growing area of the sex work industry. I would imagine that emotional connection and warm chats and foot massages and make me feel seen is probably not what I was going for. I would imagine that probably what I was going for was some like fantasy fulfillment, like, you know,
To get the D.
come talk to me in a bar and then like kiss me in an elevator and then, you know what I mean? Like that, all that kind of stuff. I'd want all that kind of stuff and then take me to this place and do that thing. That's what you'd want, right?
You're feeling quite a lot about
I don't know
yourself
why
here,
I'm
Holly
laughing
Wainwright.
at this. Like, I feel like such a juvenile talking about sex. I don't know. It's very weird.
But you know what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm thinking you pay them to fulfill a sexual fantasy.
Yeah.
But he said actually no. And actually, when I think about it, I've heard female sex workers say the same thing. He said, actually, no, people pay me for validation, a listening ear, and then for sexual intimacy. I was really surprised. Were you guys surprised by that too?
Yeah, he's got really high emotional intelligence, which I think as a straight male escort they're probably in the minority when it comes to sex workers. So the majority of sex workers are women who service men. Then there'd probably be men who service other men. And then there are men who service women. Now, some people do both, but Mitch only saw women. And I should say he's not a sex worker anymore. He stopped a year or so ago. And it's not all a rosy story. You know, he had a terrible drug addiction. Things were very difficult. He got very emotionally involved with a lot of his clients. He fell in love by accident.
Which, again, it seems like
sometimes they fell in love with him.
You can call it what you want, right? You can say this isn't a relationship because there's money involved. But if you are sharing vulnerabilities, seeing someone regularly, being sexually intimate with them, that is a relationship. It's not surprising that the boundaries got blurry.
Do you know what is surprising is for a lot of women who have been with, say, the same man for a very long time, who are probably maybe still struggling to make an emotional connection with him, that this man is just off having emotional connections with like who knows how many people. So it happens. Men are capable of making emotional connections with many, many women. It's so strange to think that a man can do that, because I've been exposed to so many men who are so emotionally cut off that imagine how much better their sex lives would be if they just emotionally connected with women.
I think that's what made him really good at his job, because, again, he's the first male escort that sees women that I've interviewed. So I imagine that, you know, without wanting to be too gender stereotype about it, there were some of his clients who were just like, I don't want to talk, I paid for dick. And he was like, then I'm not the right person for you. And he was really offended by that. I feel that this is why he was so successful, because for him, and he was quite explicit, he said, if she's not vulnerable and we don't connect, I can't perform. His line between that connection and his ability to be, you know, sexually satisfying for her was really clear. But it doesn't mean that he falls in love with every client. It just means that what he's attracted to is not just the physicality. A male sex worker, from what he explained, there's performance aspects, right? And I thought it would be as simple as just taking a pill, but he said that's not true. You still have to have a spark to sort of light the flame.
Okay.
That's why when he went and did a porno early on in his escorting career, he was invited to come and be on a porno. He couldn't do it because he just couldn't. He had complete stage fright. And it's really funny. He tells this funny story about calling his wife. And anyway, the whole story is really interesting. But what was interesting for me is about who's the type of woman who pays a man for sex. And it is not who you think.
Well, here's another thing I wanted to ask. He tells the story of the first woman who ever paid him for sex, had just been through a terrible breakup. So she was in that camp I was talking about before. And her friends were really encouraging it. So they got on the phone and vetted him with her. They were at the hotel that they agreed to meet at. They sat downstairs drinking their Bacardi Breezes while he was upstairs.
And they all helped pay for it.
Yes. So that's what I wanted to ask. Do you think that chipping in to buy a girlfriend a male sex escort is a great idea?
I think it is. Like, in obviously the right circumstances, but I think for men to go and visit a sex worker has become much more demystified than what it was, you know, say 10, 20 years ago. And we know now from hearing from sex workers themselves that sometimes, you know, they are doing a great service for the community in like people who just want physical contact. They might, you know, be someone with a disability or someone who's just, you know, had a rough time. And like, so they actually do a great service for a lot of the community. And why shouldn't women have access to that same comfort? And I guess it depends on the woman, because there are women who can't have sexual intimacy with someone without being emotionally intimate with somebody, and they find that difficult. But if it really was just for pleasure, then why the hell not?
Mitch now is contributing to Mamamia, doing a sex advice column, and he's also mentoring other male escorts.
Yeah. I like how he said, it was really interesting, and he said, you know, if any woman is thinking about booking a male escort, these are the things you should look out for. Really respectful conversations up front, really clear about boundaries and expectations, a follow-up to make sure. He spoke really eloquently about consent all the way through. I just felt a little bit like his particular brand of this, which was about building these connections, was maybe was more about him. A lazy stereotype is that women need to feel sort of seen and understood and connected in order to have a good sexual experience. It's clearly so important for him to feel needed, to feel like a bit of a hero, to feel like he was solving a problem. Full respect to him. I can also see that you might also want to pay for a handsome man to come round and not make you cry.
To be clear, he didn't make them cry, but
No,
they
I know.
often cried. It
Okay.
wasn't his idea. That's
Sure.
unfair. In defense of Mitch, they did. He never did.
No,
he
no,
was the
didn't make
opposite.
them- okay, make them cry is entirely the wrong word, but not have a D&M. You might not want to have a D&M. You
And
might
like,
just
Also,
want
if
to
you're
have
crying
sex.
because the sex is that good, then that is fine.
That's
Yeah.
true. If the tears are happy tears, we're all here for it.
Out Louders, if you want to make Mamamia Out Loud part of your routine 5 days a week, or just get more of us in your ears, we release segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays just for Mamamia subscribers. To get the full access, follow the link in the show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers. We love you.
All right, it's that time, guys. It's Friday, which means it's time to share our best and worst. And let's just start this by saying, look, the worst is pretty obvious for the three of us. The news is dark and heavy, and that is where a lot of our minds go pretty much all day, every day at the moment. So we know that is our worst, but we're trying to look outside of that too and see what else is going on in our lives.
What other worsts there are?
Yes.
Shall I kick it off for you?
Please
today?
do.
All right. My worst. And I know that I have touched a little bit on GPs today, but I went to my GP because I'm starting to get some mystery symptoms, which I believe can be explained by one very common factor, and that is the old perimenopause. Like my hair is falling out, my skin is dry and itchy. Like
Welcome.
There's lots of other things
Welcome,
that are starting
sister.
to happen. Thank you. It's nice to be here. Well, not nice to be here, but we're here. But I went to my GP and I said, look, I've got night sweats and this and this and this and this. I feel like maybe I'm hitting perimenopause. What can we do to help it out? And he goes, you're not in menopause. And I said, I know. I still get my period every month, 28 days almost on the nose. And he goes, well, you're not in menopause. We don't need to do anything. And I said, I didn't say I was in menopause. I said I'm in perimenopause. And he goes, what? And I said, not menopause, perimenopause. Like I thought by shouting it at him, maybe he would understand me a little clearer. And he kind of just shook his head and went, you're not in menopause.
Oh, God. How old was he?
He would be in his 40s.
Oh.
I had to say to him politely, without, undermining your many years of knowledge as a medical professional, do you know what perimenopause is? And he kind of went, no, it's not a term I'm familiar with.
Oh, no.
And so I forced him to get my hormones tested. I haven't gone and got the results yet, so I don't know where I'm at.
It's not going to see.
It
This
might-
is the problem.
It may or
It
may
doesn't
not tell me anything.
It doesn't tell you anything.
And now he's finally prescribed me something for night sweats, but that's it.
But this is why being educated yourself, but then also being able to find a GP who knows this stuff is life-changing or bad for you,
It's
or
not-
life-changing the other way if you don't, because there is no test. So that's why you rely on your GP to say, this is what that is.
It's
Doctor-
not that easy to find those kind of GPs when you don't live in a city, though, is it?
That is the truth. I live in regional New South Wales, which means I already have a limited number of GPs to choose from.
Telehealth.
And even less female GPs.
I think you should, I'm pretty sure that you can still use telehealth. A lot of practices use telehealth. I would not be limited by your specific GP for a situation like this. That's
right.
my reco.
Shall I just ring up and say, Mia told me I need to get
Dr. Freedman
telehealth.
told
Dr.
me.
Freedman advised me to get on the telehealth.
true.
I will do that. Well, my best. I'm going to break the rules. Can I do two?
Please.
Okay. Out Louders might be aware I've brought it up before. I got a new knee.
Is it like metal?
Yes, titanium. in fact.
Titanium, like the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh, so on trend.
Iron Man, if Iron Man was made of titanium.
Can it take photos?
Does it have
can.
Wi-Fi?
It probably
5G?
does. But I literally woke up after a surgery and the pain that I had been experiencing for decades was just
Oh, it's so
gone.
great.
Oh, my God.
And it was like the heavens opened and angels were singing. And yes, I'd been cut open and there was all amounts of other different pain, but that pain was gone.
Wow.
And it was like a freaking miracle.
Have you had to get mentally adjusted to relying on your knee to bear your weight?
Very much so, because it's been 30 years that I've had a dodgy knee. And then my physio is just like, just walk normally. I'm like, I am walking. She's like, you're not walking normally. And I'm like, but I'm trying. And she's like, swing your arms. I'm like, I'm trying.
Oh, wow.
Because I've been walking like a stiff kind of in preparation for pain or falling down because it
So
collapses
should
for
your
so long.
knee have been replaced a long time ago?
Oh, hell yes. But doctors wouldn't do it because I was too young. So I finally convinced someone to do it. In fact, the surgeon said to me, your knee's one of the worst I've seen in a while.
Did you injure it or it was just
As a
thing?
teenager, yeah, I did my cruciate ligament and then that graft failed and then had another reconstruction. That graft has failed. And so arthritis was all through it and bone on bone and cartilage gone and lots of other nastiness. So I have a new knee. It's made of titanium. It's very loud. So when I walk, I can hear it like clicking and crunching. So I've got to get used to the prosthetic. I'm very bionic, but that is super exciting. My second best is that and I know it didn't happen this week, but I went to see Paul McCartney live in concert last week.
Everybody's raving about this. And I was like, I don't want to offend one of the great songwriters of all time, but like, he's an old dude. How good is that show? And everyone's telling me, amazing. Don't be ageist, Holly.
Yeah, I do not like live gigs, and I know that is a controversial perspective. I don't like it. I don't like being in crowds of people who block my view. And I was standing behind a dead set unit. Like, I've got a photo. I will show you. Insane.
I just get bored.
The show was incredible. We went for 3 hours and the man did not stop for a second and he was pounding on the piano and playing every amount of stringed instrument. There were flamethrowers and fireworks and Live and Let Die is the most amazing song of all time. And like he admits, he's getting a bit old now. And yep, he's 81. His voice is not what it used to be.
Amazing.
But he still attempts to sing Blackbird, which is one of the hardest songs to play on a guitar of all time. And he still can do the song, but his voice isn't quite there. But he admits that. And it was just beautiful to have a Hey Jude sing along with Paul McCartney. Like you just can't.
That's amazing.
You can't do
I can
that.
almost feel the good vibes from here.
Oh my God, and I'm wearing my T-shirt today too.
I really like nice T-shirt.
Technically
too.
it's my husband's. He doesn't know I'm wearing
Good
it.
merch.
Yeah, good merch.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
I'll go next. My worst of the week has been divorce, babe. Divorce.
Are you getting divorced?
I'm not getting divorced, but I've got friends going through divorce and it's just a suck. It's just awful and custody issues and settlements and lawyers, and I just keep being reminded of that phrase, the person you divorce is not the person you marry. I know a lot of Outlouders are going through similar and it's just very, very hard. So sending love. My best is that 3 of my closest friends have had an amazing week kicking extraordinary career goals and they're all in their 50s. Last week, I went to see Lee Sales give the Andrew Olley Lecture, which is an annual lecture that you're invited to do. And it's given to some very important person in the media. Lee gave
It's an honour, right?
It's an honour and she was amazing. And
when I grow up, I want to be Lee Sales.
it raises money for a fantastic brain cancer charity, but the actual lecture itself was just outstanding. She started off by talking about how she accidentally parked in Ita's parking because Ita Buttrose is the chair of the ABC and she couldn't find a park and she had to go in quickly. I think it was during COVID and she was like, oh, look, I'm sure that will be free. And so she parked in the car spot and she came back to a note with Ita's business card stapled to it.
Shut up.
Kindly do not park in my car spot again, Ita
How
Buttrose. And it was this whole
passive-aggressive is
story.
Ita?
It was very funny. And then Ita gave a response because she was there as well. But she spoke about how journalists need to come from a position of curiosity, not idealism, and how there's a difference between journalism and activism. Activists are fine, but journalists need to be journalists and gather information. Fantastic. My friends Paula Joy and Julia Baird both launched books last night, actually. Paula has written a book about skincare. Julia Baird, who is the author of Phosphorescence, that incredible book that we all read during COVID that was a gangbuster bestseller. She's written another book that is, again, so perfectly timed. It's about grace and it's called Bright Shining. It was just so great to see my friends. I know you talk sometimes, Holly, about, when you're young, people think, oh, my 30s, my 40s, oh, so old. And to see the women around me, like you guys and many of my other friends, just doing things they never thought they'd do in their 50s has just been fantastic.
If this was a crossover with a certain other podcast that your friendly sales hosts, you would have just done 3 clangs. That's what they would have said.
Name dropping.
Clang, 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 which is in a good
sounds
way.
like
It's
name
fine.
dropping.
You're allowed to do that. It's fine.
The thing is that when
clang
you
has affection, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's true. It's what a wanker. I'm
No, you're not.
name dropping
That's not
these
what I
foods. No, but it is. But the thing is that
Basically just called her a wanker.
when you work,
I wanted to nod to the
but it is.
chatters.
When you work in any industry and you've been working in it for 30 years, you just happen to know people because you just end up knowing everybody because you've been around.
I feel
for
like
so long.
I'm not you, but I feel like in time you forget your friends would be famous, right? Like because in the start, they're famous and they do amazing famous things, but I guess over time you just kind of forget, right?
Yes. It depends whether they were famous before you became friends or not. Lee and I became friends well after she was famous, but she wasn't as famous as she's now. I mean, now she's ridiculous. But she's the most normal famous person you'll ever meet.
That makes me very happy.
I am a very bad feminist this week. The pop culture story that I got most excited about this week, that I just wanted to talk to everybody about, was that the wonderful Mary Fowler of the Matildas. And the Matildas have just played 3 extraordinary games in Perth. It was part of their Olympic qualification. They won every single one of them. I just love them so much. It was so nice to see them all again. I felt like I was reunited with old friends. Anyway, Mary Fowler, who is the extraordinary 20-year-old striker, is dating a very famous NRL player called Nathan Cleary. And everyone had been gossiping about this for ages, that it was happening. Maybe it was happening, maybe it wasn't. There were pat pics. I know we don't condone pat pics of them having ice cream once. And everyone was like, well, clearly they're dating. And everyone was like, yeah. But this week, yes, they are definitely dating. A, because terribly intrusive, awful pat pics that we do not condone were published of them being like physically intimate in a way that you're not.
He had his shirt off. They were lying in the grass. It was beautiful. He is a very good-looking
Sounds nice.
Oh my
unit.
God, he's so good-looking.
She's just the best, and they look cute
But
together.
also it was a semi-public outing because he then went to her game that night and he was sitting in the friends and family bit. And so anyway, the reason I'm a bad feminist is because this is how this story went down in the Mamamia office. The pat pictures came through of Mary, not came through to us, but someone in the office saw them and everybody lost their minds. And they were like, oh my God, Mary Fowler really is dating Nathan Cleary. And we all got excited and we all debated whether Nathan Cleary's a nice guy or a not nice guy. And apparently he's a nice guy. Anyway, then we were all quickly reminded, partly by my friend Em Vernon, who wrote a story about it on Mamamia, that we are immediately putting the genius who is Mary Fowler into a very narrow box of like just gossiping about her dating life.
Yeah.
And that when she scored her amazing goal on Wednesday night for the Matildas, rather than the camera staying on her for the celebration, it immediately panned away to pick up Nathan in the audience and see what he was doing.
Which is a travesty.
Oh, guys, come on. The way that sports stars become stars within popular culture outside just their sport is us knowing more about them, whether it's their children, their hobbies, their what they wear, like all of those things, and being interested in all of those things are just byproducts of our interest in them for what they do. So I think you're being ridiculously hard on yourself, and I don't think it has anything to do with feminism.
It will be interesting to see, because if Mary Fowler and Nathan Cleary wanted to be, they could be the Posh and Becks of Australia, right? Like he is
That is a big call,
It's true
Holly
that
Wainwright.
they could be a marketing force, they could be all those things, but they're actually both very private, so it's probably not going to happen. Anyway, I got very excited, as you can tell. My best was that on the weekend I watched Mamamia, the ABBA movie, with my daughter Matilda. I made her watch it with me, and it was so much fun. But the best thing that happened is I realised that she knows all the words to all those songs, even though we've never played ABBA in my house. ABBA is just in the ether. Like,
Or
it
did
just
she hear it on TikTok?
Oh, wow.
soaks into
Yeah.
everybody. She knew some of the really surprising ones, like Winner Takes It All.
That's
and-
because she's on TikTok.
Probably, yeah. But the best moment is that towards the end, as we know, Meryl Streep and Pierce Brosnan get together and they start pashing, and Matilda just goes, oh my God, old people kissing is just not it. And she hid behind a cushion, and I was like, this is exactly the way the world is supposed
Don't
to
you
be.
ever kiss in
Yeah.
front of her?
Yeah, but not like that.
Like they're not tongue pashing
And
each other in
also,
the kitchen in front of the kids.
If we are affectionate to each other, then as is age appropriate for her, she goes like, ew, you two are gross. Old people, get there. But I thought old people kissing is not it, is pretty much the best thing that I'd heard all week.
Brilliant.
You've got a recommendation for us before we go, Mia Freedman?
My recommendation is ping pong.
Oh,
I bought
random.
Very rogue.
Yes. I love ping pong. I've played it on and off my whole life, not competitively.
Have you
And
always called it ping pong?
What do you call it?
Table tennis.
Oh no, that's just very formal. No, it's ping pong.
You aren't capable of doing anything non-competitively. How do you play?
I'm not competitive at all because I'm not interested in following rules or anything, but I just like a hit around. We, like most people, don't have enough room in our house for a ping pong table. So I've been researching, because my kids are older now, they're teenagers, and I'm looking for something to do that's a bit of a family activity or things they can do with their friends that's not a screen. And so I was looking at outdoor ping pong tables, and it's hard to find a decent one that's not either going to fall apart or isn't $10,000, like some of those ones that you see in parks and at schools and stuff. Completely unaffordable. So I just was Googling, and I discovered this little Australian family-owned business by a couple called Corinda and her husband Jack, and it's called Pongo World. And they come in all different colours. You can customise it. If you've got a business, you can get it done in business's logo, anything really on the top of it. And it's made of, I don't know what it's made of, something sturdy. So it goes outside, and it got delivered yesterday, and within 24 hours, I swear, we've played about 8 hours of those just playing ping
That's
pong.
wholesome family fun.
Who is visualising what Mia Freedman's customised ping pong table looks like?
Well, funnily enough, I went quite neutral, like it's like a grass surface. It's almost like the surface of a tennis court. It looks like that.
Like faux grass?
Yeah, it's not actual grass, but it just is like a photo
like the
of grass.
text. Oh, it's a photo
Yeah, no,
of
it's not
grass.
texture. You can't
play ping
pong on grass.
textured grass.
I don't know.
So, but my point,
Sorry,
the
guys.
reason that this is a recommendation is that, and Jack was explaining to me why he started it. He had someone in his life, I think his brother-in-law, and he used to talk to him a lot when we used to play table tennis together, because this guy isn't very forthcoming. And then this guy moved to a different place, and they didn't have room for it. And he said he just then stopped talking to me. We didn't have a way to spend time together.
Yeah.
And I thought, if you've got teenagers, tweens, men, it's just great to have a thing to do. In the same way that they say it's good to talk to kids when you're driving once they're teenagers, because it's not so confrontational.
Millsy brings that up in his book. He says men don't speak face to face, they speak side to side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or back to
Playing
back.
playing a game.
Yeah.
Wholesome family fun. If you're looking for something else to listen to, on yesterday's subscriber episode, we said goodbye to Claire Stevens, and we got her to do an exit interview and to be a little bit brutal about Mia and I. You can listen to that now. There's a link in the show notes. And Jessie Stevens will be back on the show on Monday.
How exciting.
Very exciting. I wonder if she'll remember which end of the mic to talk into.
Also, where does the baby go? Like, you're the
It's being
grandparent.
looked after by a paid
childcare.
professional, I believe.
Correct.
A childcare professional. I love this.
Yes. And I have a feeling that Jessie Stevens will have a lot to say.
I reckon she's been saving up some shit.
Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, with audio production by Leah Porges. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and you want to support us, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do it. There's a link in the episode description.